Ever wonder what happens when the wrong guy gets pushed too far by a corrupt HOA president? Well, here's how it went down for me. It all started with a phone call. My peaceful lake cabin, a reward after 2 decades in the property management business, was suddenly listed for sale without my consent. The HOA, led by the manipulative Lois Granger, had secretly sold it to recover a fake debt I didn't even owe. This community fee of nearly $4,000 was fabricated, and Lois had been spreading lies about me to neighbors, claiming I was a deadbeat. As my world came crashing down, I dug deeper and discovered this wasn't just about me. Lois had been scheming for years, fabricating fees and manipulating homeowners for personal gain. She was selling properties at a loss to her friends and pocketing the difference. I knew I had to fight back. With my lawyer Frank, we discovered the HOA clubhouse wasn't even owned by the HOA. It was under an old trust. Lois's power was built on a rented property with an expiring lease. So, I took matters into my own hands and bought the clubhouse out from under her. It wasn't revenge, it was leverage. I bought the property quietly under a fake name and raised the rent drastically, knowing Lois would be forced to either raise HOA dues or lose the clubhouse. The moment she opened that letter, it was game over. The HOA board members were desperate, calling me repeatedly, but I stayed silent. Lois's kingdom was crumbling. The ultimate twist? Lois called an emergency meeting to try and save face, but by then, the game was mine. I didn't need to shout or confront her. I just let her try to explain why her power had vanished, and my quiet victory left her scrambling. In the end, I didn't just save my cabin. I saved the whole neighborhood from her manipulation. And that's what happens when you push the wrong person too far. It all began when I found out that my peaceful lake cabin, my reward after years of hard work in property management, was being sold behind my back by the HOA. The president, Lois Granger, fabricated a fake debt to justify selling my property. They tried to manipulate me into submission, but I wasn't going down without a fight. My lawyer Frank and I dug into the HOA's records and found out the fee didn't exist. Lois had been lying for years, making up fees and manipulating homeowners for her personal gain. She wasn't just targeting me. She had done this to others in the community, too. After uncovering her scheme, I decided to take action. The HOA clubhouse, where Lois held all her power, wasn't even owned by the HOA. It was under a trust. I bought it quietly, using a fake name to keep Lois in the dark. This gave me leverage. I raised the rent drastically, knowing she'd either raise the HOA fees or lose the clubhouse. The moment I sent that notice, Lois knew her empire was crumbling. Then came the showdown. Lois called an emergency meeting, but I came prepared with documents showing her lies. The room was tense, with people whispering and recording. Lois tried to defend herself, but a retired board member publicly contradicted her, further damaging her credibility. Lois's desperation became clear. She even accused me of being under federal investigation, which was a complete lie. But I remained calm, sticking to the facts. I announced that rent would be due by the 30th, and failure to pay would result in eviction. The room was stunned, and Lois was furious. Days later, I showed up for the lawful eviction, accompanied by my security team. Lois was there, looking desperate and disheveled, pacing like a cornered animal. She immediately tried to provoke a confrontation, even calling 911, claiming I was stealing the property she had already lost control of. But I remained calm and didn't engage. When the authorities arrived, they quickly realized the situation wasn't what Lois claimed. It was over. Lois's empire was collapsing, and I was no longer the victim. I had turned the tables, taking control of the community's future. The drama wasn't just about a cabin. It was about standing up to manipulation, protecting what was mine, and bringing an end to Lois's reign of terror. It all started when I found out my cabin, my slice of peace, was being sold without my knowledge. Lois Granger, the HOA president, had fabricated fees and manipulated the system, trying to steal my property. She spread lies about me, calling me a deadbeat, and I was suddenly the villain in my own neighborhood. I didn't back down. With the help of my lawyer Frank, we uncovered Lois's scheme, fake fees, false documents, and a plan to sell my cabin to a friend for $50,000 under market value. I decided to fight back by buying the HOA clubhouse, the center of Lois's power, and raising the rent. Lois's empire was crumbling, and she went on the attack, even calling 911, claiming I was stealing the property. But I had all the evidence to back my claims. 2 weeks later, we filed a lawsuit against Lois and the HOA. We didn't just have a mountain of evidence. We had everything in perfect order. Just before the preliminary hearing, a former HOA employee came forward with a bombshell. Lois had embezzled over $80,000 from the community. She'd been fabricating fees for years and harassing anyone who questioned her. The truth was out, and Lois's grip on the community began to unravel. At the courthouse, Lois tried to play the victim, claiming she was protecting the community, but the evidence was undeniable. A former board member testified against her, and even the judge could see the lies she'd built her power on. The final blow came when Frank revealed a secret will from 1987 that showed the clubhouse was meant to serve the community, not generate profit. Lois had been circumventing the rules for years. In the end, Lois was sentenced to 18 months for embezzlement and fraud, and I gained control of the clubhouse. Instead of making a profit, I transferred ownership to the community trust, honoring the original mission. The new HOA board, led by a nurse who'd been a quiet witness, focused on transparency and service. The community had finally been freed from Lois's reign. Lois left in disgrace, and I hosted a barbecue for the neighbors. People who once avoided me now thanked me. I saved my cabin, but more importantly, I helped restore the community's soul. The lake, once silent with tension, now felt peaceful again.